I'm attorney Nick Alcock, and if you've been arrested and you have to go to Scottsdale Municipal Court, this video is to help you walk through the process a little bit, understand it, and get ready, because anytime you have to go to court, it's obviously very stressful. The more you can know, the more you can learn before you go to court, the better off you're going to be. So most people, when they have to go to Scottsdale, they're going to get a ticket. On the bottom of that ticket, there's going to be a court date. And people think of that court date as, wow, it's going to be a trial. I'm going to walk into court and the judge is going to be up on the bench and they're going to know all about me and they're going to have my file ready and that type of stuff. And that's not how it works. Scottsdale processes a lot of cases. There are a lot of cases that move through that particular jurisdiction. And usually the prosecutor and the judge for that first court appearance, they're not thinking of you at all in advance. They're not anticipating your arrival. And in fact, there are going to be maybe 100, 200 people with court all at the same time, all on the same day. So you show up to court, you're going to wait around for a while, and eventually the judge will call your name and ask you, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? If it is a case where the government, the city is seeking jail time, they may appoint a public defender if you don't have the resources to hire a private attorney. But if it's a case where they're not seeking jail time, then they may not appoint a public defender at all. You might be completely on your own. So cases where they will not appoint somebody might be a driving on suspended license or a shoplifting case, a low-level type of trespass case, anything that is property crime. They may not be seeking jail time, so you may not get a public defender. So you might find yourself walking into court by yourself, talking to the prosecutor, talking to the judge, and you're not going to have counsel at your elbow. If you do have a DUI case, most of the time they will appoint a public defender for you if you don't have the resources, if you don't qualify based on how much you earn. So that very first court appearance, they're going to ask you how you plea, guilty or not guilty. And if you enter a plea of not guilty, you can always change that plea later. But sometimes people get nervous, they're standing in front of a judge and they know that they are guilty. So it feels a little bit strange to stand in front of a judge and say that you're not guilty when you know that you are guilty. It's really procedural. It's just, and you're saying you're not contesting the charges and that you want to see the evidence against you, you want to meet with the prosecutor later, et cetera, et cetera. After that hearing, there are going to be a number of other pretrial hearings, and they call them and all the courts have different names for them. It doesn't really matter what you call them. It's just a pretrial hearing, and the object of the exercise is, did you receive the evidence? Did you go over the evidence? Did you talk to the prosecutor? Did you negotiate it all? Do you want to enter a plea agreement, or do you want to go to trial? Do you have any pretrial motions that you want to file, or are you going to plead guilty and get it over with? So that's the purpose of those hearings. The judge is just going to want to know, hey, where are we at? How many court appearances are you going to get? There are some cases where a skilled public defender or a private attorney could potentially stretch a misdemeanor case out for well over a year. Scottsdale is quite more regimented in the way that they handle it. And that's something you need to know about that court. You might have had an experience in a different court where the case kind of just moves along and over and over and over again, it's getting continued. Scottsdale, not so much. The time frame is going to be more condensed. It's more regimented. So you have to be aware of that. The time frame from enter a plea of not guilty to that first PDC is going to be 30 days, 45 days. That's your time to find a private attorney if you want one. I would advise that if you were interested in hiring a private attorney for a case in Scottsdale, that you should hire that attorney before your first court appearance, because that attorney can go to court for you or enter a not guilty plea via motion. It saves you the trip. It means that you don't have to go. And it gives obviously the defense attorney more time to prepare for your case. Once you start talking with the prosecutor, you start getting the discovery and going over everything, usually the process of negotiating a plea agreement is a couple of months. And so you're not going to know very much at the very beginning of the case if you have a private attorney or a public defender. If you're by yourself, your first meeting with the prosecutor, they could offer a plea agreement to you. And they could say, hey, look, this is the plea agreement. Now here's where you have to be careful, and this is what you should know. If the prosecutor is offering you a diversion plea agreement, or they're offering you a plea agreement that seems very favorable, meaning the case is going to go away, and you're at that very first court appearance and they're offering that to you, if you say, no, I don't want that plea agreement, I want to think about it, you need to ask them, am I going to lose this plea agreement? Are you going to withdraw this plea agreement if I want a little more time to consider my options or to potentially hire a private attorney? So in most cases, they will give you time. In every once in a while, they won't though. So like a shoplifting diversion plea or something like that, they might say, hey, look, it's take it or leave it right now. And that's a very, very good question to ask. So you go to court, you enter a plea of not guilty, you show up for your next court appearance, 30 days later, you meet with the prosecutor. The prosecutor is going to give you this plea offer. That could be it. That could be the only time that you could enter that plea agreement. And then if you don't, you lose the plea agreement. And sometimes people will go to court and there'll be a plea agreement which is extended to them. It's very favorable. And then you hire a private attorney goes back, plea agreement is gone. So this is why we definitely advise people to contact us early so that we can advise you, look, these are the things that you need to look for. This is what you need to be prepared for if you go to Scottsdale Municipal Court. All the judges out there and the staff in Scottsdale, we really appreciate working with them. They tend to be very, very kind, and we don't see them act in a very punitive or harsh way. We think that the judges and the prosecutors out there are very reasonable, but there are times when you have a plea and then you lose it. Now, that's a rare situation. Most of the time when you go to court and you meet with the prosecutor, they'll say, oh, you want a private attorney? That's fine. We're okay to allow you, 30 days to find a private attorney, and then we'll take up the idea of plea negotiation later. This is only if you go to court and the prosecutor is offering you what you feel like is a sweetheart deal, something which is extremely favorable at the very beginning. You just got to ask that question. Hey, what happens if I hire a private attorney? Now, if the prosecutor is offering you this sweetheart deal, then you have to ask yourself, well, why are they offering this sweetheart deal? There are some cases where they may not have a victim. They may not really feel that compelled about the case. They may not like the case very much. They're trying to get rid of it. And so the fact that they're offering a sweetheart plea agreement is maybe indication that they don't have a particularly strong case. Then you hire a private attorney and they find out that there's a problem with the case. You file a motion potentially and the case could be dismissed. Obviously, every case is different. It's just that's a very, very important thing to know. That you can ask, look, does this plea agreement expire? If I don't enter it today, can I come back and enter it later? Same thing, you got to know that when you go to court and you enter a plea of not guilty, you can change that later as well. However, at some point in Scottsdale, you're going to get to a fork in the road moment, as I like to call it. That moment is when you are going to lose the plea agreement. So your attorney's done the best they can, or you've done the best you can talking to the prosecutor. At some point, the prosecutor will say, look, this is it. You don't enter this plea agreement right now, and you're going to go to trial. Some attorneys will say, especially at the outset, we've heard some attorneys will say, hey, you're looking at 6 months in jail. This is a misdemeanor. It's a class 1 misdemeanor. You're looking at 6 months in jail. The vast majority of people who are charged with a first offense misdemeanor don't get anywhere near 6 months in jail. So it's very, very unusual for that to happen. And so it's scary when you enter a plea and the judge is saying, well, potentially you could receive up to, you enter a plea of not guilty, and the judge will talk about what the crime is. So say it's a DUI, you roll into court and you're entering a plea of not guilty, the judge will advise you, this carries a maximum sentence of 6 months. It makes your heart shrink and makes your stomach hurt and the whole thing. So if you hear that, don't necessarily, you're not hearing the judge is going to be giving you that amount of time. That's just the outside edge of what is possible. However, at that fork in the road moment, and if you have a plea agreement, the prosecutor is going to say, look, this is it. You're either going to go to trial right now or you're going to enter this plea. On occasion before trial, another plea agreement can be struck, but this video is really to advise you that communicate, if you're representing yourself, get that straight with the prosecutor. If you're talking to them, you want to know from either the prosecutor or if you have a public defender, look, how much time do I have? Is this really it? And they'll tell you, but sometimes they don't make it as clear, potentially as they should. So people come to us at the very end of the process and they're like, hey, I thought I had a plea agreement and now it's gone away, or now I'm going to trial in a couple of weeks. That's not enough time usually for us to take your case. We like to work from the very beginning and help you all the way through. So if you are inclined to hire a private attorney, we definitely think earlier is better, and you want to have very clear ideas throughout your case. How much time do I have? And what is the plea agreement, and what really will potentially happen to me if I go to trial and lose? So if you have a public defender, the public defender is like, look, this is your plea. You can ask the public defender, well, what do people get in this court if they go to trial and lose? And that's when you're going to hear a number which is different than that 6 month kind of mandatory maximum, the absolute outside maximum number on a class 1 misdemeanor. So if you have any questions about how cases work in Scottsdale, I threw a lot at you here. I'm trying to keep under 10 minutes, but 602-989-5000 is our number. It's a free consultation. We're absolutely here to help you. Any case in Scottsdale Municipal Court, we've represented people there for over 22 years. I'm absolutely thrilled to help people and help them understand their system, what they're up against better, the system, how it works. Because when people are facing this type of case, there's so much fear of the unknown and shadows and all that stuff. When people get the information that they really deserve, they calm down. It's a great feeling to be able to help people. It's really a blessing. So don't be afraid to call, even if you're just seeking information. 602-989-5000. My name is Nick Alcock. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we handle cases statewide. And Scottsdale is definitely one of those places where we like to practice. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it.